Welcome back to the Inside Track. It's the big question weighing heavily on investors and lawmakers: U.S. bank exposure to Europe. And the perception of that exposure is just as important as the reality. For investors, it's act now and ask questions later. For more, we want to welcome Bloomberg contributing editor and Bloomberg View columnist Bill Cohan, author of Money and Power: How Goldman Sachs Came to Rule the World. Bill, if everyone wants to know what is the exposure banks have in derivatives to European sovereigns, why can't they just tell us?
Proprietary, Stephanie. They're not going to let you know that, not unless they have a crisis like Jeffries had, whatever it was, 10 days ago.
Proprietary. Okay, they don't have to tell me. How about their shareholders?
It's all part of the way, the black box that is Wall Street. You know, I spent, as you know, a year and a half writing, investigating, understanding Goldman Sachs. I still don't really know how they make money. They make 10% or 15% of their money.
You know how they spend money.
I know how they spend money. They give it to each other in bonuses.
Explain this, the black box. Why can't they just give us the information?
Because their trades are with their, they can if they want to, number one. Number two, their trades are with counterparties. They're constantly changing the positions, upping them, making them smaller, changing the counterparties, constantly changing the bets and how they hedge them. And they don't want to be forced to be in a position of reporting that every day to people like you and me who ask silly questions.
But what if everyone does it at the same time? What if everyone just shows their hand and we can all look at what each person has, what each bank has? I mean, the black box has served them so well during the run-up when their profits were booming. Right now, though, without clarity, people don't want to go near those banks.
Well, I mean, Charlotte, who are you talking about? People, you mean investors? I mean, their counterparties don't necessarily want them to be sharing the kinds of trades that they're doing with them and the kinds of proprietary trading that they're doing and client trading that they're doing. Shareholders and creditors, they do deserve to know. But if I were, I wouldn't necessarily be a shareholder of these banks because they don't exist for the benefit of shareholders. They exist for the benefit of the people who work there. And until that changes by, in part, sharing with people the kinds of in trading that they're doing and exposure they have. I mean, look at Jeffries. Jeffries was mum about this until the market started freaking out and taking their stock down, and they had to come and tell the world that they didn't just have $2.4 billion of long exposure.
More, right.
It was hedged. Well, so why should Goldman or J.P. Morgan do anything until they're forced to do it?
Then here's the question, because Jeffries is a good example of how concerns about European sovereign debt can almost take down a firm. It didn't in the case of Jeffries.
But it did in the case of
MF Global.
Right. And of course, it probably might in terms of Jeffries isn't out of the woods yet.
That's true.
Anytime they borrow short and lend long, they're in a troubling situation.
And when we mentioned that, Fitch came out yesterday with this warning that the U.S. banking industry could be in severe trouble if the debt crisis continues to widen. Up till this point, people are pricing in Greece and Italy. Are they pricing in France and Belgium as well?
Well, look, I think the first thing you have to remember is firms like J.P. Morgan and Goldman Sachs, as Christine's article made clear, they've got long exposure, they've got short exposure. We know from the mortgage-backed securities crisis that they are famously hedged. We know even from Jeffries was famously hedged.
But what if their counterparty goes under? Well, they're not hedged.
Of course, but that's why AIG had to be saved,
so
Stephanie.
Do you think there's an AIG waiting in the wings? Is this why we didn't see a credit event in Greece?
There is, we didn't see a credit event in Greece is because the ECB and the IMF agreed to step in and provide.
Are they doing it because it's banks who sold all this protection, and if they then have to pay out, they won't have the money? That's AIG, the revenge.
Well, there's no question that everybody is very, very interconnected, and they cannot afford to have one person. It's like a rope team on a mountain. You can't have one person bring down the whole rope team and throw them into a crevasse. They have to self-arrest. And that's what's going on in Europe. That's what we're trying, that's what we're talking, that's what happened with AIG. And, that's what we're hoping to try to avoid again. But it's a very dangerous situation. Anytime you're climbing, Mount Everest, you are in a dangerous situation.
All right. Well, thank you for that last word of warning there. Bill Cohan, our contributing editor, of course, author as well. Thank you for your time this morning.